26 cars into a sprint weekend after just one Grand Prix worth of data. Like, these poor team members, like they're getting one free practice session before just being thrown into another Grand Prix. And, you know, we had quite a few incidents last weekend. We had Williams not really being able to get Carlos Sainz going for qualifying. We had the Aston Martins not really able to take part. Cadillac had their ups and downs. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be absolute chaos. Let's go, Oscar. I don't know. Is this haircut is less Oscar, I feel, compared to the last haircut we had. But I'll take it. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? Max in the chat as well. We are live indeed. OP Network. How's it going? ARS AM 1705. Good day. How are we all feeling? Give a poll. A poll on what? If you want to get your predictions in, you can head over to the community tab, or it's not called that anymore, the posts tab on the channel, and get your predictions in for the winner, who's going to be on the podium, the surprise package for the weekend, the best team, the biggest struggle in terms of a driver, and which team you think is going to flop. You can get those over on the post tab. We don't need a poll. We got a very sophisticated prediction system that we have been running for like the last 2 years on the channel, I think. So get involved. Hello, Talker. Hello, Olson in the chat as well. I remember you. Ah, yes, you used to be London is red. Why have you changed? Have you given up on the Arsenal dream? What time is quali starting? We are about 25 minutes away, I would say. 28 minutes away from the start of sprint qualifying. It's gonna be an interesting one, I feel, because as I say, first qualifying session of the season where we've got a sprint race to go for as well. So first sprint qualifying session of the season is the words I'm looking for. God, these early starts do not do me well, do they? Anyone who was watching the Australian Grand Prix live when we did the pre-race show over on Crash Happy, and then I moved straight over to here for the full race. So I was awake like 4 hours before the start of the Grand Prix, and that meant getting up at like 1 a.m. UK time. And I tried so hard to have an early night. Like, I went to bed at like 8 o'clock, but you can't sleep at that time. I didn't fall asleep until like 10, and then that's 3 hours sleep. Get back up again. Do a whole live show, switch channels, do another whole live show. It was absolute chaos. At least this morning is not too bad. It is 7 a.m. currently in the UK, so I should be a little more alive, alert, and awake. Is the Astonishing gonna run China? Are the Astonishing gonna... I don't know what that means. 12 a.m. midnight. Oh, that's not too bad, though, because, like, at least then it will finish at, what, like 1, and then you can go to bed. It's a little bit late, but not, like, horrendously so. The races that are at, like, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I always feel like are the absolute worst ones, because you don't know whether to go to bed early or just kind of stick it out until the end of it. Feeling very normal this morning. Yeah, sorry. The normal Grand Prix weekend for my Crash Happy members out there. The Macarena rear wing is here. Does anyone know why it's called the Macarena rear wing? Because, like, I've always just called it the upside down rear wing because I'm a simpleton. Mr. Pulse in his shorts calls it the inverted rear wing because, of course, he does. He's, you know, trying to pretend that he's got like a degree that means something. Like, he calls it these fancy words. But I've always just called it the upside down rear wing. Where does the Macarena rear wing come from? Like, where did that appear from? I could grow a great beard. This is it, mate. This is like a week and a half's worth of growth. This is pure, unadulterated laziness, I'm afraid. That's all you're getting from this. The circus wing. Okay, we can't all be giving it completely different names. We need to at least stick to one. And like the media landscape as a whole seems to have stuck to the whole Macarena rear wing. So I'm kind of going off of that. but I just don't actually know where that came from. Like, surely upside down or inverted makes more sense than just picking a random niche reference to a song. Ah, Fred Vasseur called it the Macarena wing, and Ferrari use it. Okay. Well, if Ferrari have named it that, then Ferrari have named it that, haven't they? So I can't really argue with. It's literally their own thing. So imagine I'm like going into the Ferrari headquarters and being like, no, we can't call it this. That's very confusing. I, as a person who has nothing to do with Ferrari, would like to call it the upside down rear wing because I'm a simpleton. Worth it for the short. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Fred Vasseur. Maybe is the Macarena a big thing in France? I suppose it is a Spanish song, he says hesitantly. Maybe. But yeah, I always I thought Macarena. I feel like we should ask Duck about this at some point. I don't know if Duck is on the Chinese Grand Prix preview. I'll have to check. But I feel like I will be asking Duck about this because does the Macarena go all the way across the globe? Like, is it a European thing? I thought it might just be like a UK thing, to be honest. Like one of those weird things that happens on this little island and we, for some reason, just go, yep, that's a thing now and everybody knows it. Like you could play the Macarena to a 3-year-old child or an 80-year-old grandma and they'd both know what it is. As long as they'd been to like any kind of gathering in their lives, they would know what the Macarena is. Like I thought that was maybe like a UK thing, but maybe it is. Spanish song from like that's what I mean. It's from the 90s, but I didn't know it was still played across the globe. Like I thought it just stuck around. Got that in America? There you go, Sarah. Maybe the Macarena is way bigger a thing than I thought it was. There we go. We haven't learned anything about Formula One in this first 10 minutes of this stream. But what we have learned is that everybody has the Macarena. Does everybody do the same moves? I suppose the moves were in the music video, right? So it makes sense that everybody kind of does that same, like, you know, I'm not going to do the Macarena for you. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. See, I wasn't alive when the Macarena like came out, but I'll have to take your word for it that everybody across the globe is doing the Macarena. If you do it, then I'll use it for a clip. Thanks, Sarah. I feel like the clips that we do, maybe we'll do it on the Chinese Grand Prix preview. There you go, Mr. Pulse. I'll throw you under the bus too. Shall we have a little look at free practice 1? The timing sheets are out. We got free practice 1 times in, and actually it was a little bit more, I was going to use the word mixed, but it was a little bit more chaotic than I was expecting. Ferrari had a couple of Lewis Hamilton had a couple of little incidents. He had a coming together with Lando Norris, although it was only sort of a little love tap between the two of them as they came around the last corner. So nothing really to be worried about or write home about. But Lewis Hamilton did have a little tap with Lando Norris there. And then also he had a spin going down towards turn 6, but so did a lot of people, really. I think, these long straights, along with the fact that the drivers are still getting used to how the active aero reintegrates itself. Like, I think Lewis Hamilton's spin, for me, I think he just got onto the brake pedal a little bit too hard too early. And you could see like the rear wing and the front wing hadn't fully flipped themselves back into corner mode yet, and therefore locked up the rear end, similar to what Verstappen did last weekend down towards turn 1, really, and ended up just sort of sending Lewis Hamilton a little bit further into turn 6 than he would have liked. But as I say, I think that's more so just people still adapting to the brakes, still adapting to the active aero, because we have so many more sort of almost, I know they're not DRS zones, but if you compare it to the DRS zones of before, obviously we maybe had 1 or 2 DRS zones per track. Nowadays, they're just throwing a straight mode zone in literally anywhere they can. There's a straight mode between turn 4 and turn 6. There's a straight mode between turn 10 and turn 11. And like these are straight-ish sections of track. But they're not, very long straights that they are having to throw in this straight mode. So literally anywhere that is more than sort of 50 meters and it is straight, they're chucking in a straight mode nowadays in Formula One. Be interesting to see what Baku looks like if we get like straight modes around that whole first sector, and it goes like all the way down the back straight, obviously, but then also like that tiny little bit where you have the first left-hander into the second left-hander. We're going to get straight mode there, or then also the straight between second turn and the third turn where we got that second like left-hander because you go around in a box. We're going to get straight mode there. Feel like it could be quite a weird one for the straight modes and how they kind of work. But then running down the order, George Russell was quickest once again after winning the Australian Grand Prix, leading the championship, I want to say for the first time in his career. Must be, right? Must be for the first time in his career. George Russell finds himself at the top of the Formula One standings. His teammate Kimi Antonelli just a tenth of a second behind. They did quite a lot of laps as well, 29, 30 laps being completed during free practice. You got to remember, free practice is only a short session. Like they were getting out on track as much as they possibly could, and they were putting in those laps. To be able to do 30 laps within the space of free practice one is pretty impressive. Like you have to be out on track for almost all of it, and therefore we did see some fairly consistent long running. Like nobody really, I would say, put in like a consistent or put in a real bid for qualifying time. So I would take all of these with a pinch of salt when it comes to qualifying today, if I'm honest. But Kimi Antonelli, George Russell still at the top. Mercedes still look like the out-and-out qualifying package. I think Ferrari, the stability of the Ferrari last time around in Australia really caught my eye. Like, I think if Ferrari can get a couple of elements right, and the Macarena rear wing does come to the fore, then I think that Ferrari actually maybe have the better race package of the two cars. Like you look at how good it was coming out of the corners, how stable it looked. I know Lewis Hamilton hasn't helped me there by sort of spinning out in turn 6, but how stable it looked on the entry of corners as well. I think the Ferrari car, just with a little bit of development, could certainly catch up to the Mercedes. Maybe not in terms of qualifying pace, but I think in terms of race pace, they're right there with one another. It's almost going to be like Mercedes will probably out-qualify Ferrari, but Ferrari have that immense launch at the race starts. So, Mercedes are kind of behind when it comes to race starts. Ferrari are kind of behind when it comes to qualifying. So they'll both kind of merge at the beginning of the Grand Prix. And then hopefully we'll have the kind of back and forth like we did with Leclerc and Russell last time around, where we do see the Ferraris and the Mercedes both intertwining with one another. And then hopefully Ferrari at least pits one of their cars if there is a virtual safety car. And does, something to keep themselves in play, because the only reason that we saw that battle between Russell and Leclerc really come to an end was because of that virtual safety car. Otherwise, we could have had, we don't know, another 30 laps of George Russell versus Charles Leclerc going toe-to-toe. We'll have to wait and see. Am I going to be live for sprint qualifying? This is it. This is it. We are live right now. Think Russell will be the Drivers' World Champion this year. I want to say it's too early to tell, just because I think there'll be so much development over the course of this season so far, or over the course of this season. Like I could see the pecking order really swapping around by the time we get to the summer break, and then obviously going into the second half of the season. Like you've only got to look at last year or the year when McLaren kind of came to the fore. McLaren started the year really slow in 2023. And then started winning races. 2024, sorry. Started really slow in 2024. And then we got to Miami and they brought a few upgrades and Lando Norris got his first win. And then suddenly it was like, bang, McLaren are part of the discussion of winning races consistently. So just because you start the season slow does not mean that McLaren, Ferrari or Red Bull can't close the gap to Mercedes pretty substantially. I know there's all the talk about the engine and how that will play out. But again, the engine regulations, they're talking about changing. James Vowles kind of brought it up last weekend. They are now, it looks like, going to have a month of April, where we're almost going to have like an early season break because Bahrain and Saudi Arabia are very unlikely to take place. And therefore, in that month of April, they can look at Australia, China, Japan, assess the situation between all of those three, look at the fact that we're still adapting to these new batteries, how much battery deployment was good, how much battery deployment was bad, because, they used 7 megajoules in qualifying last weekend, but they used 8 megajoules in the race, or 8.5 megajoules if you've got overtake. So they can look at those three and sort of comparison, and then they can maybe adjust how much battery power we actually use. They can also adjust the engines. We know that the teams have to run the engine at a certain point. Maybe they can turn up the engines a little bit. I know they want that 50-50 between electrical and power from the V6 engine, but they can play around with that. It doesn't need to be exactly 50-50, right? If it ends up being 60% engine or 65% engine because they turn the battery down a little bit or they increase the power of the engine, I don't think anybody's going to complain. I think, that we're still working out the finer details when it comes to that as well. Megajoules. Did I say joules wrong? Megajoules. What do I think about Lindblad? Really, really impressed with Lindblad, to be honest with you. Really, really just like surprised, but also not surprised. I was surprised by how like gung-ho he was. I think it's very easy to come in as a rookie. He put in a great performance. He was up in 3rd place at one point, but nobody expected him to be there. So if he'd have kind of just slowly drifted back throughout the Grand Prix without any real fuss, I think people would have still said it was a brilliant debut. But he didn't just drift backwards. He did end up falling back in terms of the point scoring places, but he gave it a real go. He had Max Verstappen behind him and he was giving him a proper run for his money. He was fighting with the Ferraris. He was fighting with Kimi Antonelli. Like, he was having a lovely little day all out there. And he left everything out on track in Australia. And I think that's the kind of thing you want. And he's also got that kind of attitude as well. I think we said on the Crash Happy podcast, he's also got that kind of Liam Lawson attitude about him where he does have that little bit of arrogance, like he believes in himself. And I think he needs that a little bit more so than the rookies last year because he's the only rookie on the grid. So he does need to kind of stand up and be accounted for himself a little bit more so. But he also then, unlike, say, maybe Liam Lawson, also showed it out on track and was like, he can actually prove himself. And he is able to go wheel to wheel with these drivers. And he is able to, like, properly battle with some very, very experienced characters on the Formula One grid and almost hold his own when it comes to Formula One. I think this weekend's going to be really tough, mainly because he had that problem in free practice 1. And therefore only got 6 laps of running during free practice 1. So now jumping into his first ever sprint weekend on a track that he's not going to be very used to at all. Of course, he'll have done it in the simulator, but won't have driven here. And he's still adapting to these new cars. There's lots of things going against Arvid Lindblad this weekend. I suppose the only thing is the Racing Bulls car is normally fairly good at the Chinese Grand Prix. Like I remember Yuki Tsunoda getting points here last year. Who was it next to him? Isaac Hadjar having a good weekend as well. Didn't they last year? Was it last year or the year before where they put the full wet tires on? I think it might have been last year where they just decided to put the full wet tires on, even though no one ever does that. And like, if you're doing that, you've made a mistake. And they had made a mistake by putting those full wet tires on the Racing Bulls cars, because then I think it was red flagged almost instantly afterwards. So as long as they don't do that, the Racing Bulls car should be fairly decent around here, I think. Where was Liam Lawson put himself in P11 during the practice sessions. So, thank you for the $2 Canadian. Who's my top 3 for the Grand Prix this weekend? I mean, we normally do predictions just before the Grand Prix, but if I had to say right now, early prediction, you know what? I'd love it to be George Russell. This is in no particular order. And then maybe we'll sort out an order in a second. I'd love it to be George Russell. I'd love it to be Charles Leclerc. And I'd love it to be Max Verstappen. I love that little trio up there on the podium. I know that it's not looking amazing for Max Verstappen at the moment. didn't have the best of free practice sessions. It was even behind Ollie Behrman, who is putting himself in that kind of Fernando Alonso mold of a couple of seasons ago, where I think Ollie Behrman is just going to be best of the rest all day, every day. Like, he has just been so good over the sort of end of 2025, and now he's carried that form, was best of the rest in Australia, and like deserved it, was deservedly best of the rest by a considerable distance in Australia, in my opinion. Like, I think Ollie Behrman could do something. Maybe even an Ollie Behrman on the podium. If I was going to pick a midfield driver to grab a podium, I know a few people have said Lindblad podium in the chat. I think if I was going to pick a driver that I'd love to see on the podium, it would be Ollie Behrman. Even not like necessarily this weekend, but at some point this season, because it would be Haas, because it would be Behrman. I would absolutely love it. Hello, Kelly. I've made it. What sort of ordeal have you been through to get here? Goodness. Congratulations. Thank you, Kelly. Lovely to see you again. How do I think Oscar will do? It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because McLaren have been very negative, it has to be said, since Australia. I know that they didn't have the best of afternoons anyway. I mean, Lando Norris, to be fair, did finish in 5th place, but I think they've been fairly unhappy with how Mercedes seem to have so much more power coming from that power unit, and McLaren don't seem to be able to match them in terms of performance. To be fair, that's always going to kind of happen when you are the manufacturer of the power unit and you're sort of making the power unit alongside the car at the same time. But McLaren have been a little bit bitter that maybe they haven't been able to get the same kind of performance from the power unit, and they've been saying, have Mercedes been holding back a little bit of information possibly when it's come to that? Didn't know it was a sprint. Oh, well, join. Welcome in. Take a seat. Grab a chair. But yeah, I think McLaren will be... I think Piastri will be top 7, obviously. But then, you know, maybe a 4th or a 5th place would probably be the best for him. Hello, Daniel of No Skill. How's it going? Brilliant video on Aston Martin on Daniel's channel. Shouldn't promote it right now because we're about to get into sprint qualifying. But after sprint qualifying, head over to Dan's channel. I think it's absolutely flying anyway. He doesn't need me to promote it, but it was a very, very good video. Do you think Hamilton will win a race this year? Yeah. The only problem is he's got to beat Charles Leclerc. I think Charles Leclerc is just so consistent, and I think Charles Leclerc is the quicker of the 2 Ferrari drivers. Is that controversial to say? I don't think so. After Australia, I think Charles Leclerc needs to have a poor weekend, and Hamilton needs to have a good weekend. It's a little bit like the George Russell, Kimi Antonelli. Like, do I think Kimi Antonelli will win a race this year? Yeah, but only if George Russell has a poor weekend. Like, it's one of those things. When you are the clear... I was going to say Hamilton's a clear number 2 then. Ooh, that will cause some chaos. When you are the slower of the 2 teammates, you obviously need your superior teammate to kind of have a pretty bad weekend if you're going to beat them. Or at least you need to have a track where everything kind of clicks for you and doesn't quite click for your teammate. Like, I think Lewis Hamilton will win a race. I think Charles Leclerc will win one first. Or I think Charles Leclerc will win more. If they do manage to start winning races at Ferrari, I think Charles Leclerc will have more race wins than Lewis Hamilton this season. In the same way that I think George Russell will have more race wins than Kimi Antonelli. I think Max Verstappen will have more race wins than Isaac Hadjar. If they're Red Bull, or maybe even more podium places than Isaac Hadjar. Shall we start to move across? Oh, we got about 5 minutes. Just realized I haven't actually got my stream up in front of me. So I have no idea what's going on the grid. Let's have a little look. Get myself Now TV open. Some Sky Sports. Anthony Davidson on the Sky Pad. Oh, that is very behind. Let's catch up to live. Anthony Davidson talking about free practice 3 like 45 minutes ago. There we go. Asking for him to mention Liam Part 8. What's there to mention? Hasn't done anything yet. had a really funny battle with Sergio Perez for like P16 last time out in Australia. That's all Liam Lawson did. He absolutely killed himself at the start and then just ruined his Australian Grand Prix race, really, didn't he? Never seen a sprint quali. How does it work? I mean, it is almost identical to regular qualifying. There is Q1, Q2, Q3. They're all slightly shorter. And in terms of Q1 and Q2, they have to run the medium tire during sprint qualifying. So you're only allowed to use the soft compound tire if you make it all the way through to Q3, which is should mix up the order a little bit. Doesn't mix up the order a little bit that often, to be honest. Sometimes, like, some teams are better on the medium compound tire and kind of light it up a little bit quicker, but I don't think so. I think it's not big enough of a change when it comes to qualifying. You know, especially when you see like Formula 2, they do the reverse top 10. And that's pretty dramatic. But, you know, I don't think Formula 1 does enough to make the sprint races different to the Grand Prix. And that's because the teams don't want it to be different. Like, we're blaming Formula 1, but they've also got to kind of appease the teams at points as well, because all of the teams will just vote against stuff, and then Formula 1 don't really have too much to stand on. Like, it is a partnership between the teams and Formula 1, so they have to judge what they're allowed to do and when. So, but again, I just think they should have tried to make the sprint races different, you know? Reverse top 10, like we have in Formula 2. That would be very interesting to see. Or, well, I suppose you need then you wouldn't have to have a sprint qualifying. So then we could have 2 free practice sessions. We could have a qualifying as normal, then a reverse top 10 sprint, and then a Grand Prix, especially if these cars are able to overtake. Like, the problem with a reverse top 10 last season, for instance, would have just been that the top 10 would have, like, if you'd qualified in 10th place, you'd have won the sprint race. Like, there were not many overtakes happening last season without the assistance of DRS, particularly at some tracks. It would have been very, very hard to get yourself from P10 back to P1. But as we saw with Max Verstappen last weekend, like, overtakes are able to happen, and he was able to get himself through the field. Okay, he was working through the midfield cars, but we also saw Charles Leclerc and George Russell interchanging positions really often as well and battling with one another. We saw Kimi Antonelli drop backwards at the start and then jump forwards and actually get some overtakes done. So I feel like they should change the sprints up, to be honest with you. But in terms of sprint qualifying, they're the 2 changes that they make. You have to use the medium tires for Q1, Q2, and you have to, the timings for Q1 and Q2 and Q3 are slightly smaller than it is for the full qualifying. Thank you, Dan. See you soon. Have a wonderful morning. Yuki got dropped. Yeah, Yuki Tsunoda is no more. 11 teams. What are we thinking? I'd be surprised if it's not 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, 2 McLarens, 2 Red Bulls, and I'm going to go Ollie Behrman and Gabriel Bortoletto in Q3. I'd love to see Gabby in there again. Big Gabby fan. I know he was a little bit further down the pecking order. What was he, 12th place? Hulkenberg was actually in the top 10. Maybe I should have gone. Oh, could have gone Gasly in the top 10 as well. The problem is, like, there's eight spots in Q3 done and dusted. And to be honest, they're the only point scoring places when it comes to qualifying. So when it comes to the sprint race, sorry. So like 9 and 10 don't really matter. But, you know, you still get a Q3 appearance on your record. I would like, Behrman, Bortoletto, or Gasly to be kind of two of those 3 into top 10 for me, please. Hello. How's it going? Can I see your clock? No, you cannot. Gabby was a good F2 driver. I mean, he's an F2 champion. Yeah, it was very, very good. 20 seconds until it starts. Shall we go over to the slightly more detailed race board? We are getting driver radio transcriptions coming through. 45 seconds until green. That's what Lance Stroll has been told over the radio. And here we are then. The first sprint qualifying session of the season. We've got a Cadillac there trying to jump the order when it's come to the... where am I looking? I've got my track map in a different place, and I'd actually lost it on the screen. I feel like I should show you my screens one day during qualifying like this. It is utter chaos. I've got like 15 things open. Anyhow, we are into sprint qualifying. 12 minutes on the clock. And we have got Valtteri Bottas coming around at the first couple of bends for us, first and foremost. Oh, you know what I haven't done? Give me 1 second. I'm sorry. Gonna have to apply this, and it's gonna make it freeze just for a second. There we go. I hadn't done one of the settings that I need, and I also haven't turned on the sectors. That's what I mean. These early mornings are not the ones for me. Forget to do stuff. 11 minutes on the clock, though, and still nobody, bang, doing their fast laps as of yet. Opinion on the new regulations? I'm loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. Controversial, I know. For some reason, everybody just wants to hate on everything. But the Australian race was one of the best races we've seen in ages. And if it's going to deliver races like that, I don't care if they super clip down the straights. Like, it really doesn't make a difference to me if they go from 300 kilometers an hour to 260. They're still going real fast. They're still the fastest cars out there. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I know that the drivers complain about it. And I know that the drivers are complaining about the battery usage and having to hold back battery and things like that. But from a driving spectacle and from an entertainment point of view, because that's what I'm here for, it was amazing. So I really like the new regulations. I think it needs tweaking. Don't get me wrong. I think there's definitely bits and pieces that certainly need to change a tiny little bit. But I think actually it was a great Grand Prix weekend. It was a really, really fun race. Had it not been for a couple of virtual safety cars, we might have even seen a battle at the front all the way through. I really liked it. What am I going to do? The lineup and stuff. What am I using? Oh, sorry. This is Multiviewer. Multiviewer have been supporters of the channel for ages now. But Multiviewer have supported us and give all of this live timing data. You can get yourselves Multiviewer as well. You can get a little track map. Everything that I've got on the screen, you can access yourself through their website. You just have to go to Multiviewer and download the app. Macarena better come through. We haven't actually seen the Ferrari's onboards as of yet. Charles Leclerc is just coming down towards turn 14 now. Lewis Hamilton just behind his teammate. I'm watching Isaac Hadjar and Max Verstappen setting fast laps. Valtteri Bottas was the first car out on track, but I don't think Valtteri Bottas's times are really causing too much of a problem to the cars ahead. Oh, sorry, the two cars behind in Hadjar and Verstappen. In fact, Valtteri Bottas is mainly just giving Hadjar a little bit of a tow down the back straight as Hadjar then overtakes Valtteri Bottas into turn 14. Hadjar is still quickest of anybody through the middle sector. Verstappen has set the standard through the first sector until Charles Leclerc goes purple through that first part of the lap. Here comes Isaac Hadjar to set the standard then at a 134.4 for now. Valtteri Bottas a 149.3. And actually, Max Verstappen just a touch slower than his teammate. Isaac Hadjar getting that boost from Bottas down the back straight. And Nico Hulkenberg comes across the line for a 143. That's not going to be anywhere close to good enough. Here comes Gabriel Bortoleto as well, 144.8. I think the Audi cars might have been going for a second warm-up lap there because they are not representative times. Esteban Ocon comes across the line, a 147.7. I think everybody's going for a second warm-up lap. Just the Red Bull cars that decided to go for a fast lap, and Liam Lawson does the same in the sister Red Bull team, a 134.7 from Liam Lawson. Lindblad, a 135.3. Be interesting to see what Lindblad can do here, because as I say, this is a real test for Lindblad this weekend. Here come the two Ferrari cars then. Leclerc goes quickest by a couple of tenths of a second. Lewis Hamilton still the quickest man in the second sector. Oh, and there's an Alpine in front of Lewis Hamilton that has a little squirm. Actually, it's a very quick time from Lewis Hamilton nonetheless, a 1:33.7. Here we go then. The times are starting to tumble. Hamilton and Leclerc now top of the timing sheets from the two Red Bulls of Hadjar and Verstappen. Remember, we are just looking for those bottom 6, really, in this first qualifying session. The bottom 6 cars will be out of qualifying, and the top 16 go through to the second part of sprint qualifying this morning. Haven't really got 16 cars that have put in representative times. Only really the top 8, if you're assuming that's the kind of pace that Valtteri Bottas has got up there at the moment. Nico Hülkenberg splits the Ferrari cars. 0.2 of a second slower than Lewis Hamilton's time for now. Lance Stroll has had a lap time deleted for track limits infringement. So Lance Stroll's lap time is now null and void. Esteban Ocon slots himself above Gabriel Bortoleto. Here comes Ollie Behrman, though, and Behrman beats out the Red Bull cars to go 4th fastest overall at the moment. So it is Hamilton, Hülkenberg, Leclerc, and Behrman are top 4, with Isaac Hadjar and Verstappen just behind. We have had 11 cars complete lap times that actually kind of count. So the 11 left to go. Here comes Oscar Piastri. We're on board with the Australian as he enters straight mode and goes down that back straight, giving it absolutely everything that he's got, using all the battery, using all of the engine. Couple of cars in front of him to deal with. I think it's an Alpine to his right-hand side and a Ferrari just in front of him as well. But Piastri uses that slipstream a little bit, gets around the final couple of corners. And let's see where Oscar Piastri lines up in the running order then. Comes across the line, goes second fastest within 0.1 of a second as well to Lewis Hamilton's Ferrari lap time. George Russell has gone quickest of anybody through the first sector. Let's have a little look at Lando Norris's lap time, though. Outdoes his teammate by 0.03 of a second. So he's 0.05 down on Lewis Hamilton's fastest lap time so far. Here comes Kimi Antonelli to go 0.3 of a second quicker. And George Russell to find another 0.4 on top of that. So Hamilton now 0.7 adrift of the fastest time from George Russell. Wow, the Mercedes car, in terms of qualifying, does just seem to have everything clicking in its favour. I'd be very surprised if they're not on the front row of the grid again. But remember, as long as Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc are on the second row, they will be waiting and watching. The launch that they got in Australia was absolutely obscene. Charles Leclerc is improving through the first and second sectors, but is still down on George Russell's time. Carlos Sainz has not set a fast lap yet. Looking at the two Williams cars, actually, Albon also hasn't set a fast lap yet, but they're now entering the final sector. It is Alonso, Bottas, Albon, Sainz, Stroll, and Perez down in that bottom 6 at the moment, and they will be in the elimination zone if they do not improve. Lewis Hamilton has improved in the middle sector, and I think it's gone purple in the middle sector there. Just double check. It has indeed gone purple in the middle sector, Lewis Hamilton. Here comes Charles Leclerc across the start-finish line to get himself back within 0.4 of a second to George Russell's fastest lap time so far. Here comes Carlos Sainz. It's only 15th fastest from Sainz. That might not be enough. Here comes Alex Albon as well. It's only 17th fastest from Albon. That is definitely not going to be enough as Lewis Hamilton goes within a couple of tenths, only 1/10 down on George Russell's fastest lap time. So the Ferraris have rebutted and they've come back swinging as we are now seeing George Russell within 1/10, just over 1/10 to Lewis Hamilton in second place. Verstappen not very happy with the shifts inside of his Red Bull car. Albon 17th, Colapinto 18th at the moment. Here comes Hülkenberg and stays 7th fastest. He's about 9.5 of a second slow of George Russell's provisional pole, but we're still only in SQ1. We're really looking at that bottom 6, which currently has 2 Aston Martins, 2 Cadillacs, an Albon and a Colapinto. So those drivers, the ones that need to improve. It's Lindblad right on the border of dropping out in SQ1. Carlos Sainz the same. Gabriel Bortoleto then only 14th fastest at the minute as well. I don't know. We've seen from, well, last time out, we saw Fernando Alonso very, very nearly sneak into Q2 in his Aston Martin car. So doesn't mean it's completely over. Oh, and Bortoleto went very, very deep into turn 15. Over the gravel he goes. And just tried to turn in and had no grip whatsoever. Carried way too much momentum into turn 15. Managed to catch it once the gravel had kind of gone underneath him. There is some tarmac on the outside there at turn 15 because obviously it goes towards the entry to the pit lane. So Bortoleto did manage to snag that, but it's going to be tough for Bortoleto to improve, especially as he's going to need to do a little warm-up lap before then going once again. Hadjar and Verstappen actually going a little bit slower than their previous runs in the first sector, but improving in the middle part of the lap. We were just watching Isaac Hadjar again getting a little bit of a tow from Valtteri Bottas down towards the end of this straight. And Max Verstappen behind his teammate as well. Hadjar currently 11 fastest. Let's see where he improves into. He doesn't. Stays 11 fastest, does Isaac Hadjar. Max Verstappen, though, also just stays 8th fastest. No improvement from the two Red Bull cars as we're into the final minute of this first part of qualifying. Esteban Ocon is coming around turn 14 now with his teammate Ollie Bearman just behind him. Both Bearman and Ocon safe at the moment. Bearman 9th place, Ocon 12th. Ocon is going to be the first of the two Haas's across the start-finish line and goes 8th fastest. Ocon then ahead of Max Verstappen. Here comes Liam Lawson. And Lawson goes up to 9th fastest as well. So Verstappen starting to fall down the order, now 10th fastest overall. Here comes Arvid Lindblad to put himself a little bit safer and moves himself off that 16th place and up into 13th. So just gives himself a tiny little bit of breathing room to that bottom 6. It's still Albon and Colapinto, along with the two Aston Martins and the two Cadillacs, as Pierre Gasly takes the checkered flag and goes 7th fastest overall. Russell, Hamilton, Leclerc, Antonelli, Norris, Piastri, Gasly have locked in their lap times. Carlos Sainz is coming around the final couple of corners. Franco Colapinto improves into 15th place. That does put Carlos Sainz out unless he can improve, and he doesn't. Carlos Sainz is going to be out of this first part of qualifying. I think Alex Albon might be as well. He's just coming around turn 15. I can't see if he's on a fast lap or not. Oh, no, he did improve in the middle sector, did Alex Albon. So he's now coming down the start-finish straight. Is he going to improve into 16th? I don't think so. Nope. Alex Albon stays where he was. It's going to be two Williamses, two Aston Martins, and two Cadillacs. 2x2x2 out in this first part of qualifying. Sergio Perez, no time set, unfortunately. Valtteri Bottas, 4.5 seconds off the pace. Lance Stroll and Fernando Alonso, 2.5 seconds and 3 seconds off the pace. And then Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon, 1.7 seconds and 2.2 seconds adrift. So Carlos Sainz was a couple of tenths slower than Franco Colapinto. There was lots of time left on the table there where Colapinto managed to sneak his way through. Lindblad through as well in 15th place. Hadjar down in 14th. Gabriel Bortoleto, Bearman and Verstappen, the 6 drivers from 11th to 16th that will be looking at that and going, we need to improve. We're going to make our way through to SQ3. Hadjar is the real deal. I mean, he's just driving an absolute dog of a car by the looks of things. I know I said that we're pretty much guaranteed to have 2 Mercedes, 2 McLarens, 2 Ferraris, and 2 Red Bulls. I might have to redact the 2 Red Bulls part of that statement. They look really uncomfortable at the moment. Max Verstappen complaining constantly about gear shifts, about drivability. Cannot get the car to work in his favour this weekend. And Isaac Hadjar, if Max Verstappen's going slowly, Isaac Hadjar's got absolutely no chance. Can I please explain what super clipping is? Yeah, sure. So it's when you are going down the back straight. So for instance, as the cars come around turn 13 into 14, They are obviously in straight mode. They're going as fast as they possibly can. And therefore, the drivers, because they want to get to that top speed as quickly as possible, they're using all of the engine power and all of the battery power available to them. But the problem is you're only allowed to store so much battery power at one point in time. So therefore, what happens is they get sort of 2/3 of the way down the straight, and they've been holding that battery button down for the entire time, and the battery just runs out. And at that point, because you've got no more power coming from the electrical motor running the wheels, it means that the car actually starts to slow down. The drivers aren't actually, they're not hitting the brake pedal. They're not, coming off the throttle. They are still absolutely 100% pedal to the floor, and they're still holding down that battery button, but the battery runs out. So because the battery runs out, they actually slow down. So they clip, the engine clips out, and it looks like they're almost braking, because they can go from 300 kilometers an hour to sort of 250, 260 kilometers an hour, even though they aren't hitting the brake pedal. So that's super clipping. It's when the car isn't accelerating all the way down the straight, or isn't maintaining that same top speed, ends up actually slowing down because they run out of battery. And then basically, because they've run out of battery, the MGUK clicks in. So they actually start harvesting battery, which also takes away from their top speed, because it takes some of the power from the engine and turns it into electrical energy to start actually charging the battery. So super clipping, but I don't think it's that big of a problem. It is only happening 2/3, 3/4 of the way down the straights. Okay, last time out, it was maybe a little bit more frustrating because it was through that really fun sort of turn 9, turn 10 section in Australia. But at the same time, it's just kind of is what it is with these regulations, and they'll work it out. Maybe they need to adapt how they how much you can, so that they could adapt how much battery you can use when you're kind of pressing that button. Maybe the deployment of the battery is a little bit slower, right? Because at the moment they can use so many kilowatts per second. Maybe they just elongate that, right? You take down the amount of kilowatts they can use per second, and actually you could sustain the battery for longer by using less power per second. You would have no idea as a fan watching, but they wouldn't end up having that super clipping. Or they just allow it, right? Super clipping isn't that bad. It looks a little bit weird from the onboards, but at the same time, we're not in the cars. I think it's one of those things. A lot of fans complain about things from the driver's perspective. We're not drivers, right? And none of us are going to be. Maybe one of us, or maybe 10 of us who are watching this as a fan right now will actually end up being a Formula One driver. And I'm going to tell you, it's probably not you, right? So it's I don't understand why fans complain about things from a driver's perspective. From our perspective, all we should want as fans is the most competitive and the most entertaining racing. That's it. That is all I want from Formula One, because I'm a fan of the sport. And if the drivers are complaining, I'm not that bothered. But they're that's just my perspective on it. If Max Verstappen is complaining that the cars are rubbish to drive, I don't care. I don't drive it. I'm not going to drive it. I don't mind. And he isn't going to leave. As much as he sort of says, oh, I'll just leave the sport. He probably will in a few years' time. Sure. But he understands that he's also getting paid $70 million a year to drive a car. So he won't leave until it is absolutely understandable. One of us not being F1 drivers one day. Sorry, Kelly. Everyone who is watching, other than Kelly, because Kelly is definitely going to be driving for Ferrari in a couple of years' time. You thought it was going to be Ollie Behrman. It's not. How do I find the data? This is from Multiviewer, who are always on the stream, and in every single video, they're just in a little hat form behind me, which you can't always see. Or you can just Google Multiviewer, and they'll be there. Practice my reaction times on public roads daily. I can see Sarah at home with a couple of tennis balls doing the Pierre Gasly catching game. SQ2 is about to get underway. We're seeing a few cars coming out. Nico Hülkenberg, the first man out on track. Oscar Piastri following him around the first couple of corners. And a little bit of a queue in the pit lane once again. Lando Norris ahead of Gabriel Bortoleto. Ollie Behrman also making his way out. The two Alpines, the two Red Bulls. Everybody is ready and raring to go. Antonelli still in the garage for Mercedes. 10 minutes on the clock for this second qualifying session. Now down to 9. And it's going to be very tight for these cars to get a flying lap or two in. I can understand why Hülkenberg, Piastri, Norris, Bortoleto wanted to be the first cars out on track, because if you're going to get 2 laps in here, well, as we've just seen from the last session, is sort of a 145 to 150 warm-up lap, and then you're hoping sort of a 130 in terms of flying lap. So 10 minutes is not a lot of time to get yourself around this track, what would have to be 4 times to set 2 flying laps. Unless you're going to do 2 warm-up laps. So then you are really pushing it fairly tight, especially if you want to get in, change tyres, anything like that along the way as well. Paul Aaron at Alpine. I love that Alpine do manage to get all of these kind of... They always have so many drivers in their driver academy. And it just seems like a strange thing. Like, if you accept being in the Alpine Driver Academy, you just know it's going to be a weird few seasons for yourself, don't you? Like, yeah, just ask Jack Doohan. Just ask Oscar Piastri. Like, it is always an odd time. I'm just gutted that Alex Dunn has gone from McLaren over to Alpine. I had high hopes for him, but now he's in an Alpine car. I just cannot support that. I suppose that they're no longer like Renault associated anymore. So I like them a little bit more, Alpine. But the Renault engine is just absolutely painstaking. Oscar Piastri setting a flying lap, then Nico Hülkenberg ahead of him. Fairly decent first sector from Oscar Piastri, 28.1. Lando Norris, though, goes a 28 dead, so finds a 10th of a second on his teammate in the first sector. Nico Hülkenberg is the leading car, by the way, if you're trying to keep track of who is where. Although Kimi Antonelli and George Russell have just come out of the garage. Gabriel Bortoleto seemingly going for a second warm-up lap, or maybe made a little bit of a mistake, as Ollie Behrman is making his way past Russell, Bortoleto, and now Kimi Antonelli. Let's look at Piastri's lap time through the middle sector. It's fairly slow from Piastri, a 32.9 from Piastri through the middle part of the lap. That is not what you want to see. Lando Norris, though, a 30.4. Hülkenberg coming down this back straight and going very, very slow indeed. So I think maybe recharging. And Lando Norris also clearly not on a full push lap, because he is weaving left and right as he goes down this back straight. So Piastri and Norris actually going to launch themselves a little bit more in this second. What I thought would be their second flying lap actually seems to be their first. Pierre Gasly is now setting the fastest lap times in the first and second sectors. Ollie Behrman sets the standard at a 1:33.999. But Gasly looking to improve upon that, was fastest man in the first and second sectors and the third sector to go 1:33.5 from the Frenchman. Although Charles Leclerc has just taken the fastest first sector time from his friend Pierre Gasly with a 24.184. Looking very swift from Charles Leclerc as he comes through the second sector as well, and is more than half a second quicker than Pierre Gasly at the moment. Max Verstappen comes across the start-finish line to go fastest of anybody with a 33.5, 7 thousandths of a second, separating Verstappen and Gasly. Hadjar then just under a 10th behind as well, so the top 3 only separated by half a 10th of a second. Liam Lawson comes across the line to go 4th fastest, but I'm keeping an eye on Charles Leclerc, who's just gone second, quickest in the second sector as well. Leclerc now coming around turn 14 and 15. The Ferrari looks planted through that final corner as well. Does look swift here, although Max Verstappen still fastest, then displaced by Charles Leclerc by nearly a second. 9 tenths of a second. quicker than Max Verstappen. Lewis Hamilton comes across the line, can't get anywhere close to Charles Leclerc's lap time. 6.5 tenths separate the two Ferraris, even though they are first and second. Nico Hülkenberg comes across the line to go 6th fastest. Piastri and Norris currently down in that bottom 6, and Piastri goes 2nd fastest, half a second slower than Charles Leclerc. Here comes Lando Norris to improve as well, and slots in just 0.02 of a second slower than Piastri. George Russell, though, oh no, sorry, that's Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli comes across the line, and a 1:32.5 puts him to the top of the timing sheets. George Russell's about to obliterate that, though, fastest in the first and second sectors, and is 0.3 of a second quicker than his teammate, who is also 0.3 of a second quicker than Leclerc. So absolutely obscene from George Russell there. Just puts himself top of the timing sheet by a distance once again. Oh, and Ollie Behrman makes a mistake around turn 16. Oh, that's a little bit frustrating from Ollie, especially because that's going to affect the lap that you're going into as well. And he is in that bottom 6 at the moment. It's Hülkenberg, Ocon, Bortoleto. Oh, sorry, not Hülkenberg. Ocon, Bortoleto, Lawson, Behrman, Lindblad, and Colapinto. And Lando Norris saying that Antonelli got in his way. He was going to push on that lap, but Kimi Antonelli was in the firing line, so decided to hold back instead. George Russell, as I say, 0.3 of a second quicker than anybody else right now. Charles Leclerc and Kimi Antonelli, his closest competitors. Then Piastri, another 0.6 of a second behind in 4th spot. It's Norris, Hamilton, Verstappen, Gasly, Hadjar, and Hülkenberg, the drivers that at the moment see themselves through to SQ3. But we still have got 2.5 minutes left to go on the clock. And Isaac Hadjar not improving in the first sector. He's right in that zone, is Isaac Hadjar. 9th place at the moment, under pressure, needs to improve. It's only a couple of hundredths quicker than Esteban Ocon, who's currently in the drop zone and will be improving fairly soon, you would imagine. Bortoleto is another 10th or so back on that. Lawson and Lindblad in that bottom 6 as well. Behrman, Colapinto, all looking to improve. Watching the onboard with Isaac Hadjar. And you can see that just a little bit of clipping at the end there. Slows the car down. Antonelli is now going to be under investigation. You'll see it pop up on your screens. Antonelli under investigation for impeding Lando Norris. That could come back to bite the Mercedes car, especially if Antonelli is on the front row of the grid. A grid penalty, dropping him back a few places. Just opens the door to maybe a Ferrari or a McLaren to get onto that front row of the grid. We know if Charles Leclerc is starting side by side with George Russell, who I'm putting my money on going into the first corner ahead. Lewis Hamilton improving through the middle sector. Was a little bit slower in the first sector, though, was Lewis Hamilton. Rear wing opens on that Ferrari car. It's not the Macarena rear wing, unfortunately, for the Ferrari team. They decided to leave it off the car in terms of sprint qualifying. I think they just brought it for the fun of it, didn't they? They just brought it because they knew everybody would talk about it. They were never going to put it on the car for an actual competitive session. Hamilton round the final corner, comes across the line, goes 4th fastest, but is 0.5 of a second slower than the likes of Antonelli and Charles Leclerc. Nico Hülkenberg stays 10th fastest, is right under pressure now. Oscar Piastri improves to go 4th fastest, goes a little quicker than Lewis Hamilton, 0.004 of a second quicker. That is very much a little quicker than Lewis Hamilton. Lando Norris can't improve, stays 6th. Kimi Antonelli improves on his final sector, but it's 1:32.291. Yeah, it does improve by a couple of tenths of a second. Kimi Antonelli. Gabriel Bortoleto comes across the line. 13th fastest for him. Ollie Behrman gets himself up into that top 10. He is 7th fastest at the moment. That puts Isaac Hadjar in the drop zone. And is Liam Lawson about to drop Isaac Hadjar out of the top 10 as Gasly also improves to go 7th fastest. We now have Verstappen and Hadjar living right on the edge. Verstappen is 9th fastest. Hadjar is 10th fastest at the moment, with Ocon and Lawson and Lindblad still to come. Here we are. Lindblad is coming around the final corner. Can't improve. Doesn't go quicker. What about Liam Lawson, though? Lawson now around the final corner, stays 13th fastest. Esteban Ocon is coming around turn 14. It wasn't the best of first sectors from Esteban Ocon, though. Little bit quicker in the second part of the lap. Needs a pretty stunning final sector if he's going to knock out Isaac Hadjar, and doesn't. The Red Bull team can breathe a sigh of relief, as we do have 2 Red Bulls through to SQ3. It's Hulkenberg, Ocon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Lindblad, and Colapinto then, the 6 drivers that drop out. It is Gasly and Behrman. I think I said I'd like Gasly, Behrman, or Bortoletto in the top 10, so 2 of my 3, absolutely spot on. I'll take that, thank you very much. And it is also the top 8 as expected. The 2 Mercedes, the 2 Ferraris, the 2 McLarens, and just about the 2 Red Bulls, Max Verstappen and Isaac Hadjar, living dangerously inside of that Red Bull car. And then Max Verstappen not very happy with the Alpine there, kind of put him off as he was going through turn 15, and then went super deep into turn 16 as well after flipping his hand towards the Alpine car on the left-hand side of the track. Don't know which Alpine it was, didn't manage to see, but Max Verstappen is not a very happy bunny right now inside of that Red Bull racing car. Gasly getting an Alpine through to Q3 feels very nice, and Behrman just doing what Behrman is doing so far this season. Best of the rest in the Australian Grand Prix. Looks to be best of the rest once again. Who do I support? I'm wearing papaya. Gasly is cooking today. Gasly always is good in qualifying. Like, we've got to remember, Gasly managed to get that absolute tractor of an Alpine from last season into 10 Q3 sessions. 10! That's nearly half the season he was in Q3. And he was in that Alpine that came 10th in the constructor standings. Like, he was so good, Gasly, last season. It's just, there was no way of him showing it because the race pace of the Alpine car was so doggedly slow. I think Gasly kind of goes a little bit underrated, to be honest. Like, I love Gasly. I was a real big fan of Gasly when he was in the second Red Bull team. I thought he really stood out. And that 2021 season in the AlphaTauri car, goodness me, what a season that was. I think the problem is he had to get away from the second Red Bull team. Absolutely fair. You need to leave there at some point because he was never going to go back into the main Red Bull team. Although, after the couple of seasons they've had, maybe he would have snuck back in, considering how bad, Perez ended up being, and then they had the chaos with Tsunoda and Lawson last season. Maybe they would have just thrown Gasly in. But he had to leave at some point. He did decide to leave. I think just going to Alpine at the time that he did was calamitous. Well, the Alpine would all have also done really well. Like, Alpine came 4th in the constructor standings in 2022. It just fell off an absolute cliff, didn't it? Like, they did really well for the first season of the last regulation cycle, and then just absolutely fell to bits. And they hired and fired about 20 different team principals, and then one of them got sent to jail, or one of them's brother got sent to jail, so then they had to go into hiding. Like, they just got so unlucky, did the French team. And Alpine then also just cutting ties with the Renault engine was a great choice. I feel like just using the Mercedes engine this year is just much better than hoping that Renault by themselves would be able to make a competitive engine. Yeah, I think Gasly this season, we're going to see the proper Gasly once again. We're going to actually see him in a fairly competitive car for the midfield. We're going to see him make some overtakes. We're going to see him in Q3. We're going to see him get points. Like, Gasly will have a good season this year. Colapinto, though, down in 16th place, miles off of it in comparison to his teammate. So Gasly was 0.9 of a second quicker than Franco Colapinto in that last SQ2 session. I think he's under pressure. Colapinto needs to perform this season. Again, kind of had the excuse last year that he was in the Alpine car that was just terrible. But now the Alpine car looks okay. Like, looks middling midfield. It's in there with the Haas's, the RBs. It isn't a Williams or an Aston Martin. Like, he hasn't got that excuse of being one of the back pack anymore. And still only 16th in qualifying. Outdone by Lindblad, a rookie. Outdone by Bortoletto in the Audi. Audi are running their own engine for the first time. We're not expecting them to be absolutely scintillatingly quick. But they continue to raise eyebrows. Like Hulkenberg's up there in 11th place as well. Like Audi look way more competitive than I think most were expecting. Shoulda, woulda, coulda. Mercedes 1-2. Does feel like that this season, doesn't it? Antonelli almost kind of make it a little bit of a mistake by getting in the way of... Ooh. And Gasly is under investigation now for impeding Max Verstappen at turn 14, turn 15. But yeah, Antonelli under investigation. I think it's going to be done after the session. Yeah. So incident involving Antonelli and Norris will be investigated after the session. So we could end up seeing a penalty for Antonelli there if they're really quite harsh. I haven't seen the incident, but Lando Norris was not very happy about it at all. So that's the only thing that I think could mean that we see a Ferrari or a McLaren on the front row. Or, of course, Russell or Antonelli making a little bit of a mistake here in this final SQ3 session. But we are going to see Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc, Piastri, Hamilton, Norris, Gasly, Behrman, Verstappen, and Hadjar make their way around this Chinese track one more time, because we have got the shootout for the top 10. Remember, tomorrow in the sprint race, the top 8 score points. So although it is a top 10 shootout, really, you want to get yourself into that top 8 if you can. And then if you are the likes of Leclerc, Hamilton, and Behrman, who have got that Ferrari engine, and you know that you've also got an absolute launch off the line, I mean, Ollie Behrman, if he can get himself into the top 8, could he get himself ahead of a Norris or a Hamilton? No, maybe not Hamilton. Hamilton's also in a Ferrari. Could he get himself ahead of a Norris or a Piastri come tomorrow? Could we see Ollie Behrman, knocking on the door of a top 5 finish in the sprint? It's not impossible. 8 minutes on the clock. Nobody out on track as of yet. Yeah, SQ3 timer is running. And Mercedes, considering they've been the team that have kind of left it a little bit later in SQ1 and SQ2, are the first 2 cars that I can see coming out of the garage, followed by a Red Bull. Ferrari's following suit. Here we are then. It is going to be Kimi Antonelli who sets the first flying lap of anybody. George Russell, his teammate behind him. The Mercedes car's going first. And maybe just wanting to get this done and dusted, Put the lap time in now. Get back in the garage. Feet up, cup of tea for the final few minutes of SQ3. Max Verstappen's out on track. So Charles Leclerc. So it was Verstappen, the Red Bull, and Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari that we saw coming out onto the track. Lewis Hamilton just behind. So we have got 5 of the top 10 out on track right now, including the 4 that we're expected to really be battling for the front rows here. Antonelli, Russell, Leclerc, and Hamilton all out on track. Max Verstappen, I mean, I would normally put him in that battle, but he's having a bit of a torrid time inside of that Red Bull car and only just managed to sneak it through in SQ2. Unless the Red Bull team have been able to make some pretty comprehensive changes to that car, I'm not sure that we're going to see Verstappen really fighting with the 4 cars he is out on track with at the moment. The other 5 cars, Piastri, Norris, Gasly, Behrman, Hadjar, yet to step foot on the Shanghai circuit. Here we are then. Antonelli coming around turn 14. Let's keep an eye on their lap times in comparison to the rest. George Russell's going to be just behind his teammate. Be interesting to see if Antonelli can maybe get the better of George Russell. Hasn't been able to do it so far this weekend and couldn't do it last weekend either. But you never know with the Italian. He's got the ability to just turn up every now and then and be lightning quick inside of that Mercedes car. Did manage to get a pole position to his name last year in Miami, you might remember, during a sprint weekend. Antonelli doesn't look super smooth through those first couple of corners. It is probably the most difficult part of the track, that turn 2 long sort of right-hand turn and then into the sweepy left as well. It's not a very nice first couple of corners, I would say, in Shanghai. Like, I always struggle with it in the game. But Russell is quicker than Antonelli. It's a 23.9 from George Russell in the first sector. Max Verstappen can't live with that as he sets a 24.4. So it's half a second down just through the first sector, Max Verstappen. Keeping an eye on the Ferrari lap times. 24.1 from Charles Leclerc in the first sector. Lewis Hamilton's going purple in a couple of the little mini sectors, but it's a 24.1 from him in the first sector as well. So George Russell, currently king of the first sector. Kimi Antonelli, though, quicker than his teammate George Russell in the second part of the lap. Max Verstappen also not quite near the Mercedes times for now. Here comes Antonelli then. Round turn 14 he goes, trying to get that power down, using as little battery left as possible as he crossed the start-finish line. A 131.880 from Kimi Antonelli. George Russell around the final corner. Rear wing open, and it's a 131.5 from George Russell. 0.3 of a second quicker than his teammate. Here comes Max Verstappen. I don't think it's going to be anywhere close. It's a second, well, nearly 2 seconds adrift, 1.7 seconds behind the pole position time. Charles Leclerc 1.2 seconds adrift of George Russell's fastest lap time as well. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to fight for that front row, and is 0.6 of a second adrift still on George Russell's time. So it is Russell, Antonelli, Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen in that order as our top 5 for now. As I say, we have yet to see the 2 McLaren cars as Oscar Piastri's car is readied. Tyre blankets are removed and gets dropped onto the floor of the garage to come out on track. Piastri and Norris making their way out now. Gasly, Behrman and Hadjar also need a flying lap time. Here's Lewis Hamilton. Was there a little mistake from Hamilton? Or maybe a tiny little bit of a slide as he was coming through turn 16. Nothing ridiculously egregious there. But we are going to see Oscar Piastri out on track. And actually, Ollie Behrman has snuck between the 2 McLaren cars. So it will be Gasly, Norris, and then Behrman, with Piastri just behind. And Isaac Hadjar is going to be the last man out on track, although I haven't actually seen Isaac Hadjar leaving the pits yet. Ah, there he is. Isaac Hadjar making his way around turn 1 right now. Antonelli down to turn 14 again. George Russell the same, making their way back to the pits after consolidating a front 2. No, Antonelli's going to run again. I didn't think they'd maybe run a second lap, just because of the soft compound tyres, but clearly soft compound tyres got enough life in them that the Mercedes team think Antonelli and Russell can run again. Verstappen the same, Leclerc too. Gasly holding out his soft compound tyres for one run. So Piastri, Norris, Gasly, Behrman and Hadjar are only going to have one shot at this. They are literally doing their own one-shot qualifying. And then Antonelli and George Russell slower than their previous lap times in Sector 1. I just don't know if those soft compound tyres are built for 5 laps of this circuit, if I'm honest. But we'll have to wait and see. Antonelli in the second sector. Can he improve there? He's just coming through turn 10 now. No, it's slower in the second sector as well from Antonelli than it was previously. George Russell the same. So nobody in that front 5 seems to be improving on their lap times. Let's have a little look at Charles Leclerc. Leclerc improved by the tiniest of margins, 0.005 of a second. The Ferraris improved by in that first sector, where Lewis Hamilton did not improve either. So we are really looking at Piastri, Norris, Behrman, Gasly here, really. And then Isaac Hadjar is just about to make his way around the final corner too. Antonelli is going to finish this lap time, though, so let's see it locked in. It is still second fastest and still 2 and a bit tenths behind his teammate. George Russell comes across the line and does not improve. It's a 131.5 from him, locked in as his fastest time of the session. Charles Leclerc now coming around the final couple of corners. Keeping an eye on Piastri and Norris's time, though. Piastri has actually gone quickest of anybody in the first sector with a 23.913. Lando Norris 23.961. So actually not looking too bad from Piastri and Norris. Certainly can be within the realms of getting in front of the 2 Ferrari cars of Hamilton and Leclerc. Leclerc was still a second slower than George Russell despite improving on that second lap. Here comes Pierre Gasly then around the final couple of corners. And Piastri still quickest in the first sector of anybody. Gasly across the line and does displace, gets himself into that top 5, gets Max Verstappen down into 6th place. Here comes Lando Norris. I think it's going to get in front of the Ferraris and does just about get in front of the Ferraris. 0.6 of a second slower still, though. Ollie Behrman can't really do much from there. Haas slots into 8th place. Oscar Piastri up into 5th. He splits the Ferraris. So it is Norris, Hamilton, Piastri, Leclerc in that order from 3rd to 6th place. And then Isaac Hadjar, where will he slot into? His teammate Max Verstappen currently 8th. And Isaac Hadjar cannot get himself up off of 10th place in the running order. So that is your top 10 then for sprint race tomorrow. George Russell and Kimi Antonelli once again lock out the front row for Mercedes. Then it's Lando Norris and Lewis Hamilton behind in 3rd and 4th place for an all-British second row. Piastri and Leclerc in 5th and 6th place. Pierre Gasly, best of the rest, in 7th spot. He's actually beat out Max Verstappen's Red Bull, who slots into 8th. Ollie Behrman and Isaac Hadjar will start just outside of the point-scoring places in 9th and 10th place tomorrow. The 6 drivers that we lost in SQ2, Nico Hulkenberg and Esteban Ocon, will start in 11th and 12th place. Lawson and Bortoletto, 13th and 14th, with Lindblad and Colapinto rounding out 15th and 16th spot in that SQ2. And then it was 2x2 in the first part of qualifying. The 2 Williamses will start in 17th and 18th. The 2 Aston Martins, if they can get going, will start in 19th and 20th. And the 2 Cadillacs, of course, at the back of the pack in 21st and 22nd place. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for joining me for this sprint qualifying, the first sprint qualifying season of the season. And it's been absolutely brilliant. Of course, once again, we have seen the Mercedes domination in qualifying, but it's not all about qualifying. There are no points won today. It is all about the sprint race tomorrow. And then, of course, we're live again for the full qualifying for the Grand Prix tomorrow as well, along with the Grand Prix itself on Sunday and a pre-race show over on the Crash Happy channel as well. Subscribe here. Subscribe over on Crash Happy. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another sprint race in China.